Hey, what's up guys? So today is our first time we're gonna do our test on our first game. It's Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. So we're now right now opening the game using the Xbox app on our Windows 10 PC. We're gonna see how much we have like time to run. Like this is the time we press click on the play. We see the options, mods enable, no mod. Boom. So let's begin. So let's start with the performance. So the time to open, it depends really on the hardware that we have, but it takes a little bit considerably more compared to the Steam counterpart. So if you have Halo the Master Chief Collection using the Xbox app, it is going to take a little bit longer than the Steam version. As soon as we open the game, it takes a little bit of time. That's why I'm telling you that the Steam version runs a little bit better. So as soon as we open the game, we start, it's full screen mode, it starts. I have all my parameters here so we can see the CPU usage, the GPU usage. You can see that the menu is locked at 62 frames, which we can actually say it's 60 because I usually play on the Steam version. Now it's getting like, hey, switch your account. So as soon as I log into my account, you're going to see that it's going to ask, hey, you're in another device. You want to go log in? Okay, let's log in. You have the option to set your preferred input when you're playing competitive or social. You can only use one input at a time. So you have to basically check the one that you want to use during that gameplay session. So let's start with the campaign. We're going to start with Halo CE Anniversary. Let's just play mission. Let's just play the second one. And let's go. So the menu is quite complicated. I really think they should do a little bit better job using the menu. But it works. Let's just put it that way. It works. So as soon as we open the game, we want to monitor how are the frames running, what is the CPU usage, the GPU usage, and let's see. So it's loading pretty fast, maybe because we have an SSD. And here's the campaign. As you can see, right now it's limited to 180 frames, and for some reason it's not running. But the more interesting is that GPU is not even using more than 40%, and neither is the CPU, which in this time lets us to believe and lets me to believe that the game is simply unoptimized. There are issues, maybe because of the port, maybe because of the way it was programmed originally, and it's having some issues. And as you can see, the CPU is getting almost 85%, but the GPU is really not even running completely. So this gives us the option to believe that there's something going on there in the optimization side. So the game appears to be CPU dependent. So the campaign may be, unoptimized. Now let's try a little bit here the multiplayer custom game. I'm gonna host it, run it myself, and let's see how it goes. You start. It's almost the same menu, same kind of tabs like and then you choose it. So I open the game. As soon as you run it on multiplayer, you can kind of see that it's stuck in 180 because I have it locked at 180 frames. You can see that the CPU is not even being used completely, neither is the GPU. Regardless, the CPU has been used a little bit more, which again confirms that this game is a little bit CPU dependent. So we can see here that we have some options, graphical options. I'm just gonna unlock the frame rate so you guys can see how much is actually the machine able to run. You can see that the percentage of usage starts to go up, and we're almost at more than 300 frames, which is kind of interesting, but really not really what we want. We rather prefer a consistent frame rate and of course frame time compared to basically 500 frames per second, which is really not even able to be rendered by my monitor. So multiplayer runs buttery smooth, to be honest, and it's stable with a little bit of frames time instability, and overall gives a very, very, very good playtime. It's really enjoyable. It's very interesting that you can actually play the game in multiplayer using either the controller or the mouse and keyboard, which we're going to discuss further later down the road about the input methods and how it's optimized for both. Remember that this game was released around the 2000. It was a staple for the Xbox brand, and it was just released for Xbox originally using a controller. So now another thing that we would like to discuss is, as usual, is the graphical settings that we have available for this game. So for the multiplayer, we have a little bit of enhanced textures, anti-aliasing, but not really enhanced modern textures, in a way that it's trying to be as true to the original, so recreating the same polygons just a little bit better. That's basically it. So now let's talk a little bit more on the graphical settings. So let's go and take a little bit of a deep dive. Okay, so as soon as we open here the graphical settings, which we're gonna talk about that, we can see that we can have monitor selection, Windows mode, resolution settings, and video settings per game. In this case, we're just talking about Halo CE. We can see that it's very interesting that we're gonna test it. It's gonna be right now. It's on full screen, and we're gonna test it here. How do we know it's full screen? We do the Alt Tab test. If you Alt Tab and the game minimizes, it means that it's running full screen, completely full screen. When you try borderless and you Alt Tab, you're not gonna see nothing, including this screen. You're not gonna see nothing. But I'm telling you, so you know the Alt Tab test. Some games they say they are full screen, but when you do the Alt Tab test and they do not minimize, they're not really full screen. A very prime example of this is Forza Horizon 4. So, we already talked about the test, alt tabbing. Here you can see that we're actually alt tabbing. Here you go. It minimizes, so it really confirms that it is full screen. And then we do a test here for borderless, and as you can see, we still confirm that still minimizes. And now, whoop, there you go. So now we're gonna test a little bit about the resolution. Let's see if the resolution can be adjusted to my dynamic super sampling resolution, dynamic range, which is DSR on NVIDIA. I might have to find out the complete name, but we're gonna see if this Halo is able to reproduce it. Oh yes, I can run the game in 4K. As you can see, you're gonna see only a quarter of the screen, but the important thing is that you can actually run the game at 4K. So it recognizes that DSR resolution. So that is very interesting. We're gonna go back to 1080p, and then we're gonna discuss a little bit about the input method. And it's very interesting because here you can see how much I'm doing to actually get the 1080p. Here you can see I'm taking it back to 1080p. Now a little bit of a black screen because you have to do the resizing and then it modifies all my desktop, but it's okay. So minimize, still full screen. Go in. Let's take a look. Okay, we have the game back at 1080p. So extra comments, we're gonna see a little bit more settings. You can have here some settings. You can actually modify some of the anti-aliasing, illumination. In the campaign you have actually two modes, anniversary and classic. For the Halo purists down there, you can actually play classic. For people who just want to see maybe a little better graphical look, closer to today's standards, you can actually play the enhanced version, which is this one. And you can see here some of the settings that we have: texture resolution, anti-aliasing, shadow quality, which is fairly standard. We can consider this advanced since this is a game from the 2000s. So we can consider that 343 did a very good job porting this, and we have advanced graphical settings for a game that is almost 25 years old. That's funny. So in terms of input method, we would touch a little bit lightly on the beginning on that, and now let's talk about input method. So what input methods you can actually use in this game? Well, any controller that can run on a Windows 10 PC, Windows 11, and of course Windows previous versions. I'm just gonna connect my Xbox controller and I put a monitor there, a controller capture. You can now see how it captures every movement that I do, and it of course is optimized for controller. The game was designed for controllers and it runs extremely well. You can see I'm just gonna do some jumps here, so you can see the response rate, the input lag is very good. It's consistent, and before that you were actually guys seeing me playing using a mouse and keyboard. But now let's talk a little bit about audio. For the audio, you guys have a lot of mix and balancing. Like you can increase volumes, decrease volumes, but we don't really have that option to actually see the type of encoding on the audio. Are we having surround sound? Are we having stereo sound? What are we having? So for the audio test, the game sounds well. I can really find and address the directions. I'm playing using Dolby Atmos, but the game really doesn't actually specify what type of encoding we're using, and that kind of frustrates you a bit because then you have to guess that we're basically playing the game on stereo and then my computer is doing the encoding to Dolby Atmos. So just for you guys to know, in final thoughts, the game is a very good port with some performance issues, especially on the campaign side, most likely because of poorly optimization on the developer team, or maybe some extra external constraints that we may not know about, because the original game, you can see that there is no complete usage of our CPU or GPU. it needs to be remembered that this game released almost 25 years ago, and doing the port from an instruction set and CPU that is not really the same that we're using right now may have and may occur in these changes and this lack of performance. Regardless, the experience is extremely well. For a Game Pass user, this is a must-play game and really needs to be played. So this is a very good Halo 1 experience and might be just as good as the Steam version. The only caveat is when you first open the game using the Xbox app, it takes a little bit longer than the Steam version. So see you on the next one. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll keep going testing each game by game. So see you on the next one, guys. Bye.